what's the why in all this stuff?
It's a loaded question. Well, when my hip hop career didn't work out, multiple record labels were like,
Okay, it's recording now.
okay.
So now you can say what it is you do.
So I am a certified divorce mediator. I specialize, my niche is divorce and family. So anything family law related, I facilitate it neutrally. So contrary to what people normally do, they go hire an attorney for each side, each individual side, and it's kind of one side against the other, but we're there to be neutral and to help people create their own agreement essentially. But we guide them, we let them know what the statutes are, we educate them on maybe what would happen if they were to go to court, but then it's completely confidential. They maintain the control and they're not bound by those laws. So they basically create their agreement and then we draft it up, submit it to the court, and it's done.
So when we first met, because we've both been through this process, I didn't even realize that what you do was a lane in which this stuff happens, because I just thought I get an attorney, the other person gets an attorney. So what would be like the benefits or the differences, or, if you're talking to someone new, like, hey, like when we met, I didn't know that was a thing. And I don't know if that would have worked for me, but there could be people out there that would totally be a good fit, but they don't know it's a thing.
Yeah.
So what would be the benefits or whatnot compared to both sides going to their own spot? And
yeah, good question. So sadly, that's part of my job, is educating people. It's the uphill battle that I fight, because a lot of people don't know that mediation is a thing unless they've been through a process like this and they did court mandated mediation. So people will go retain their attorneys, they'll start that high conflict process, and then they'll be forced into mediation before litigation or going to court and having a judge decide or whatever. So the benefits are huge. We save people time, money, and conflict. And we do that because, first of all, if people were to start with attorneys, they would go file for divorce, right? That kicks in filing fees, that kicks in the court process, pushing them along. Someone gets served papers, their guard immediately goes up. They go into fight mode, and it's immediately like this. Both parties feel like they need to protect themselves. When people approach this process, they call us and they say, hey, we don't want to fight. We don't really know how to do this ourselves. We're intimidated by doing the papers ourselves, which a lot of our clients are people that come back in that tried to do that missed a lot of things. And we just tell them, like, hey, you came to the right place, because what we do is we say, hey, we don't want to fight. We teach them how to approach the other person. We don't want to fight. We want to do this peacefully, just want to do it fairly. And I want us to maintain the control, especially when there's kids involved. But even when there's not, it just is a lot more calming of an approach when you have that conversation with your partner, right? Or let's say it's a parenting plan modification or anything like that. It's that same approach. We don't want to fight about it. We don't want this to be high conflict. I don't want each of us to spend tens of thousands. Let's just come together, sit down together collaboratively, and let's do this quicker, less costly, and more peacefully. And most people that call us and we explain that to them, they're like, oh, Thank you.
I didn't know this existed.
Yeah.
So do you have limitations compared to if each hired their own attorney, or can you from start to finish do what an attorney would do?
No, that's a great question. We have no limitations. And the beauty of that is attorneys are bound by law, right? And by the bar. They have all these rules. As strictly mediators, we are there, like I said, to educate on statutes and help them know that there are certain things that by law have to be in a divorce or in certain aspects of these types of cases. But they don't have to go that route. We do the entire thing start to finish. So no, we're not limited by law. They can agree to whatever they want to, as long as we're educating them. A judge loves agreeable couples. So we create their agreement. We draft it up. I, by law, in Oregon specifically can't draft final court documents, but I have an attorney associate who does that. She doesn't represent either of them. So basically facilitate the process, draft up a mediated agreement. They sign it. At that point, it's enforceable. I kick it to her. She drafts up the final court doc, submits it to the court. So no limitations at all.
Can you only work with people in Oregon?
No.
Any state?
Yep, any state. So as a mediator, you're not bound to a certain state. But again, the court documents. So all we would do is we would mediate their mediated agreement. And at that point, that's basically saying when we transfer this into a final agreement to the court system, this is exactly what's going to be in it. And we both agree to that. And it's not going to change after we sign this. So it kind of holds that. Mm-hmm. So if anything crazy were to happen between then and filing the final documents with the court, then it's enforceable, basically. So we do the mediated agreement, the marital settlement agreement, or the modification, or the parenting plan, or the custody. And we just find someone in that state, either a paralegal or an attorney, who can just draft the final court documents and submit it to the court.
Gotcha.
In any state.
And you mentioned parenting plan and whatnot. So any situation, children, no children, whatever it is, no limitations there either.
Nope.
Whatever the attorneys could do, essentially you can do as well.
Yeah. And again, attorneys push the laws, right? We are not bound by law. So couples can agree to whatever they want to. We just educate. Hey, here's what the laws are, but you can agree to whatever you want to, and trying to help people. If there are things that they're disputing on, that's where we kind of push the law. Well, if you were to go to court, this is probably what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So we know we'll kind of help facilitate agreements that way. But there's a lot of times where people go outside of statutes, and if they agree on it, more power to them. I'll draft it up that way.
And I assume, like any other contract, they might agree now, but what happens if a few years down the road, or whenever down the road, and one party feels like, actually that wasn't fair, or like I want to change something, what is that like? Would they come back to you, or is that a point where then now I need an attorney to change that?
Nope.
So it's always just kind of it can always be a conversation.
It's always an option. So if people have their agreement for a couple years, especially this happens with kids, people that have minor children, their needs change, whether it's schedules or people's jobs or whatever, the needs change for the children or for the couple, the co-parents, and they come back to us. The financial side of things, if people don't have kids, that's pretty much set in stone. They can't really come back and change those things as much, but when it comes to kids, those things can always be modified. And they just basically come back to us and say, hey, we need to readdress some stuff. We do the same process. We sit down together, and then we basically file a modification or an addendum to their former agreement. It's really quick and easy, but the same process.
Timeline, typically speaking, I know timelines are never the same every time, but like if someone was to say like, how long we talking? Because I know what I went through, when I went through this kind of stuff, not in your lane, but with attorneys, that took a while.
Putting it nicely.
What would your timeline with and obviously assuming people are trying to work together, and that's more who you're going to be dealing with parties that are not trying to go the other route, but let's just say if everything went smoothly, which typically doesn't happen, but everything goes according to plan, what does that look like? Timeline? Well,
actually, you say, which isn't typical, but most of the people that choose mediation up front, it actually does go pretty smoothly because they're fairly agreeable people to begin with, and they don't want to be fighting. Yeah. So I do have a lot of very smooth processes. There's always little bumps here and there, but nothing that isn't solved rather quickly. We do also do very high conflict scenarios though.
Like someone's like, hey, are we talking like a month, 3 months, 2 weeks, 6 months?
Yeah. Well, that's what's crazy is with attorney litigation, it's typically months to years to get through a process. With mediation, we've done things as quickly as 2 weeks, but it's typically months. So our typical turnaround is anywhere from 2 to 3 months, typically. If people are fairly agreeable and we move through things rather quickly, we can get their mediated agreement and get that signed rather quickly. It's more so the final drafting and the submitting to the court and waiting on a judge to sign. That's mostly what we're waiting on. But if people's schedules line up and things go smoothly, I mean, it can be fairly seamless.
Are most of the people you're working with, are they coming to your office? Are you like going somewhere else to meet them? Are you Zooming?
Everything. That's the beauty of it, is we have an office in downtown Salem, and I use that a lot. But I also have a home office where I Zoom from for people that are working or on the go, or if they're higher conflicts, sometimes they don't want to be in the same room as each other.
Makes sense.
So we do offer Zoom, and then I offer a travel to you for a small fee. So if they have access to a conference room or an office somewhere neutral ground, then we can do that. But we also have an office access in the Pearl district. So I use that a lot. Yeah.
Sweet. Now the good stuff. What got you into this? Why do you do this? Why have you, I mean, obviously I know more of your story, and, you know, you decided to take this jump a few years back and start your own company. And, but what's the why in all this stuff?
It's a loaded question. Well, when my hip hop career didn't work out, you know, multiple record labels were like,
hey, we got a studio now. We can start recording again. I don't know if it'll be as successful as what you're doing now, but
why do you say that, Trav? Jeez. Yeah. So anyway, when hip hop and acting didn't work out, no. On a real note, I was a trainer / coach. I was married prior, and grew up in a very traditional household, religious household, very traditional values of, you know, you get married, the woman stays home, you have kids, you know, that sort of thing. And so from a very young age, I was married, started popping out babies. Anyway, when it started to come to fruition that this relationship was not healthy and it might not work out, you know, I was probably 7 years into 12. Long story short, I had a brother who got divorced, and, you know, in the culture, it's very looked down upon. You know, marriages are supposed to be forever. And so they went the attorney litigation route. And what happened is what typically happens, and it blew up and things escalated, and they went from being fairly cordial to 10 years later, they can't even sit on the same side of the room as each other at their daughter's wedding, you know, like absolutely do not like each other. You know, I don't like to use the word hate, but you know, anyway, it scared me out of it for a long time, to be honest, because at this point I had 3 boys, and then later, surprise, number 4, baby girl came. And so
firecracker.
Yeah, the little firecracker. She'll be a CEO someday. She might take over the business.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, I would rather throw myself under the bus every day and make myself miserable than do that to my kids. I was so scared of having that happen to them, you know, starting the attorney litigation process, things blow up, we hate each other, and then it destroys who? It destroys them. They're the innocent bystanders, you know? And I knew that they didn't deserve that. And I was fine enough that I was willing to endure it. Well, fast forward several years, it became inevitable. You know, it was just, that was the writing on the wall, and we were doing it. But thankfully, him and I had the wherewithal to sit down and have level-headed conversations. And we realized that that's not what we wanted to be. We had both seen it in other people's lives that we cared about, and we did not want our kids to go through that. And so our love for our kids really helped. And he started basically asking around and found mediation through a friend. They referred us to a mediator, and we were stoked and pursued that. And I mean, it's not to say that it wasn't without its bumps. You know, we had a little bit longer process than most, but as we went through the process, I was just so thankful over and over that moments that became conflict or conflicting moments, our mediator would bring that conflict down and bring us back down to earth as a neutral party. He'd be like, look, you're feeling this way. You're feeling this way. Let's bring it back to here, you know? And, you know, we went through it. We got through it. We ended up divorced, and our kids came out relatively unscathed because all they needed to know was that they had two parents that loved them and were invested in their lives, you know, and their comfort and their safety. And so as long as they felt safe and loved, they were okay. And we both put a lot of effort into that. And our mediator actually helped coach us through that a little bit, and a therapist. So I just was so thankful because it was completely opposite of watching my brother, right? So we were sitting at games together. We're having birthday parties together. We're doing holidays together. And not saying that everybody that comes out of mediation gets that same experience, but experiencing firsthand the difference between this and that, I just started asking a lot of questions throughout the process to our mediator about the process, his job, how he got into it, how he, you know, because I had never seen it before. I'd never even heard of it, like we talked about.
Yeah. So before your friend gave you that referral, that's what I was about to ask you. Like, did you think like, oh, I didn't know that this was a thing?
I had no idea.
So that's how you learned, because your
Referral.
friend said something.
Had no clue that mediation was even a thing. So we had talked about doing the papers ourselves, but that's like, to me, that's like trying to sell a house if you know nothing about selling real estate on your own, you know, like I would rather just push it to someone whose knowledge is there and trust someone else with it. So I was just super thankful, but I started getting very inquisitive because at the time, you know, like I said, I was a trainer coach, and I knew moving forward, I had to find a more long-term career, and I had studied broadcast journalism, and I knew that that was a move to the job type thing. I knew that wasn't a realistic career path because he traveled. I had to be home with the kids still for the majority of the time. And so I was just looking for something to where I could be a mom and be present, but also kick butt career-wise, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at going back to school for dental hygiene and nursing, like the stereotypical mom jobs. And long story short,
all those moms
at one point,
all those moms getting mad at you right now that you just said stereotypical mom jobs. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Nothing wrong with that. Amazing, respectful careers.
I mean, there's reasons why they do that with the schedule of it and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
being present.
No disrespect.
No, none at all. I mean, that's why I was looking into it.
Yeah.
I was looking at it into doing those things because it made sense.
Yeah.
You know?
But you wanted to have your own company or be your, well, maybe not necessarily then. No.
I always had an entrepreneurial mindset, I will say, because even when I was a trainer coach, I had a little design business on the side, you know, things like that. I'd always kind of have a side hustle of some sort of my own. And anyway, when I started getting inquisitive about mediation, at one point the mediator kind of whispered in my ear and was like, you're catching things that most people don't catch, and you're asking questions that most people don't ask. Have you ever thought about doing this? And I was like, now I am. Now I'm totally thinking about doing this. And immediately I felt like a fire was lit in my soul.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I couldn't really commit to a program and going back to school, but I knew I needed something, you know, where I could support my family and be financially stable and independent and help people, because that was always ingrained in me. And so, you know, having some sort of career where I can help people and find value in it. Anyway,
and that was how long ago?
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I worked for him for 2 years. Anyway, back to that. So he started letting me shadow him after we finished our process. He remained neutral, and he actually said, I would feel comfortable asking your co-parent at this point if it's okay that you start to shadow me. So he asked him, like, hey, are you cool with this? Because he's a neutral party, right? And he helped us with our process, so he felt that that was important. I basically did an apprenticeship with him where I started answering phone calls, emails, doing intake, and then fast forward down the line, I fell in love with it. started shadowing him through his mediations. He's based out of Salt Lake City. And so I would fly down there, shadow him, and then eventually decided to go the certification process, which there's 2 ways to become a mediator. One is to get a dispute resolution degree or the apprenticeship certification internship route.
The first thing, how do you do that? How do you get that?
You just go to school for it. It's just a degree, dispute resolution.
What school do you go to?
Willamette here, I think, has it.
Okay.
You know, basically any.
Okay, like your standard colleges are going to offer that. Okay.
I don't know which ones have it and which one don't, but a lot of them do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of schooling programs out there where you get that.
Dispute resolution degree. Or I was lucky enough, and it's super rare to go this route because most people don't have someone that'll take them under their wing. So I did my apprenticeship, and then I went down to San Diego and did a certification process strictly for divorce mediation because there's a ton of different types of mediation out there. And I wanted to do the divorce and family niche. So I went down there for a divorce mediation certificate through Mazda Mediation. And
you totally felt included and like everyone else down there.
Yeah, for sure. No. I walked into that room. I flew down to San Diego, walk into that room for our first day of class, and it was full of family law attorneys, because there are attorney mediators, family law attorneys, therapists, psychiatrists, and then ex-trainer single mom of 4. And I walked in and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I do not belong here. And I was super intimidated immediately, which is rare for me. I'm not usually intimidated by much.
That is true.
And so what was crazy is I feel like everybody kind of felt that way at first. But as the training went on and the days went on, by the end of it, people were turning to me and asking me the questions or asking me for my input because I was the only one in that room that had been through a mediated divorce with children. And I realized in that moment that brings so much value to the table, experience that all of those people didn't have. And that's what makes me passionate about it. And that's what makes me good at what I do, because I actually care about the outcome for these people, because I care about keeping their kids out of conflict, and I care about those families.
Yeah.
I care about those couples being cordial.
Yeah.
You know, not having this be a point in their lives where it was the point that ruined their lives, you know? So
that's interesting. You go down there and then you see who's in there and you feel like what you're bringing is a weakness compared to attorney guy and whatever person. And then it turned into a strength of your personal, what you had been through. And then they're asking you questions.
And by the end of the week, we had a meeting where we all sat together and we basically just highlighted the week and what we were leaving there with. And it got emotional. All of us at some point were crying. But when it got to me, and I just started relaying how much this had made a difference in my life and how mediation had changed my life and the lives of my children, everyone got emotional. And I was like, I just know, I know that I'm meant to do this. This is why I'm here. And this is why I've been through everything that I've been through. It all comes to this moment because now I get to flip the script and go help people through the exact same thing. And it's been incredibly rewarding for sure.
Yeah, there's just I don't know, there's something different. Like when you have experienced the thing or whatnot, I don't know, that brings another facet into the whole thing.
Well, it's just like anything, you know, nobody wants to go to a mechanic that's never had their car break down, or, you know, nobody wants to get a filling by a dentist who's never had a filling.
Yeah.
You know, there's value in experience.
Yeah.
And people value the fact that you can empathize with how they're feeling or where they're at. It might not be exactly the same experience, but I can empathize with those feelings that come along with that experience.
So you've been doing this 3 years now?
So I started with a company out of state several years ago. I was hired on with the mediator that did our mediation and worked with him for quite some time. And then started realizing, we started talking business deals and expanding his business up into this area and things like that. And some stuff just kind of went down, and I started doing some thinking and realized, you know what? Like, there are so many people in my own community that need this. And I was helping people in other states, which I love doing. I love helping anyone through it, but it makes it so much more special knowing I'm helping families in my own community.
Yeah.
And in my own state and surrounding areas. And I'm getting referrals from friends and friends of friends and people that my people care about. You know, I'm helping these people. And so
people you might run into.
Yeah.
I mean, people their kids might go to school with your kid or whatever, whatever.
And it's so rewarding to me to see those people around town and see them happy and co-parenting well, or, you know, moving on with their lives well. And that is a piece of it that's incredibly rewarding for me, is seeing the aftermath in a positive aspect. So yeah, as I was working for him, I started to realize my own community needs this. And so thankfully I had met one person down in San Diego who happened to be from Portland, Karen Jones. And
great last name.
Yeah, super strong. Yep. But she was a family law attorney. And what's crazy is all the family law attorneys down there had been family law attorneys for quite some time. And most of them, I would venture to say all of them, relayed the fact that they got sick of their job. They got sick of people fighting. They got sick of hearing the same stories. They got sick of basically going to trial, winning the case, or making their clients happy for 24 hours. And then all of a sudden they realize that they have no relationship, or they've just destroyed their opportunity to have a strong co-parenting relationship. So they're happy for a minute, miserable after.
Yeah.
And they just got sick of basically destroying families. And she was one of them. She's like, I just want to make my practice into a family mediation practice. And so she shifted her family law career into a family mediation career. Anyway, it was several years after my certification that I decided to start my own practice. And I had no idea how to start. You know, I was starting this completely from scratch. I had never owned a business. I hadn't set up a business. I didn't know all the paperwork, all the, you know, licensing and everything that goes with it. And so I remembered meeting her, inquired with the certification company. They sent, you know, because we'd all gotten pretty close down there. And so they sent me her info, and I reached out to her and I was like, hey, can you help me? She's like, yes. So she helped me set up my practice. I had learned enough working for the other company that I knew how the processes worked and the softwares that I needed and all of that. So started just slowly acquiring everything that I needed, and took about 8 months to get my practice set up, and then opened my doors. It was 2 years ago, February 2020.
So you started the company during 2020.
Yep.
That must have made it really easy.
Smooth sailing.
Man, I guess if you can get through that year.
Yeah, I opened my doors pretty much like, you know, signed lease on my office, got the whole thing set up, got my business set up, opened my doors, and then shutdowns happened in Oregon for COVID. So I was like, well, this is cool. Because then I had 4 kids also home with distance learning. And I was like trying to work from home. They're trying to do homework. You know, you got kids knocking on my door while I'm trying to be on a Zoom or whatever. So I was like, this is crazy. So I didn't really work too hard to build it in the beginning, but it just started building.
Yeah.
Like the more people started learning about it and passing the word along, and whatever, Google ads, you know, like things just kind of started to slowly start going. So 2020 was obviously a slow start, but then from there it's just,
Yeah, we met you well, you started cutting my hair. That's how we actually met.
That's right.
Yes, you started cutting my hair.
That's right. During COVID.
because everything was closed down.
There's no places
and I was trying to get a haircut.
That was one of those side hustles.
That's right.
Yeah. Entrepreneurial.
And then we got to see all the kids there, and man, you had a lot going on there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sheesh.
It was a wild year for sure.
But I mean, COVID kind of made us all learn some things and pivot and think outside of the box and get a lot of people used to the Zooms and whatnot that like probably never video chatted before, which I mean now, especially like you can work with anyone in any state, you know, so that's just a video chat away.
It definitely did do some things to help catapult my business growing for sure. You know, like you said, people getting used to Zoom or whatever.
Yeah.
People getting used to everything online. So online, you know, paperless forms, paperless booking, all of that, you know, that I had planned on using, people just expected it, which was nice.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot for a period of time there. But honestly, I was thankful immediately that I had chosen and pursued a career path where I could formulate my schedule around theirs. So, like I said, I just feel like it plopped into my lap right when I needed it, that I'm able to be there for them and be there at every turn and be there at the crossroads to help them with school at that time. But now it's sports and, you know, field trips and whatever. And I'm able to formulate my schedule so I don't have to miss anything for my kids, but I can also work late nights or weekends or whatever I need to do to be there for my clients.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a huge blessing for sure.
So what would be your biggest challenge with what you do? Is it that a lot of us don't know that it's a thing, that we wouldn't know to even Google for it?
Yeah, thankfully, you know, people, when they Google divorce or whatever, it kind of pops up. And we do get people that just kind of are like, oh, what's this? Because it says, you know, lower conflict cost, whatever. And we get some people that way, but it's mostly been referral based. That's where things have really started to catapult, is word just getting out locally that this is a thing. But yeah, that's one of the biggest uphill battles for sure, is just educating people that there is another way besides filling out the papers yourself or going full blown attorney litigation. Yeah. You know, and we do work with people's attorneys. I think a lot of people don't know that too. If people have retained attorneys and it's getting expensive, or they feel like this is too much or whatever, they can pause that at any point and choose to do mediation and then see if we can solve it here. If we don't, they can go back to their attorneys, or they can get advice from their attorneys, but we're over here. And I've had people do that where they pause their attorneys, or they learn about mediation post retaining attorneys, and they come to us and we just wrap it up, and they're like, well, why didn't I do this in the first place? So a lot of people don't know that we can actually work with your attorneys too.
Gotcha.
Some people will have their own attorneys draft up the final docs too. So I do the mediated agreement and send it to their attorney.
I was just thinking 2020 about you cutting my hair. And I was just thinking we might not be sitting right here had all that not happened.
We wouldn't, probably.
I mean, being buds, and it's so weird. I was just thinking about,
because I was working out in your friend's garage.
Yes.
So I was a little gym rat.
Yes.
And to be honest, that's another thing that catapulted me was I was still kind of doing the trainer coach thing on the side, really nervous to start my own practice, you know, and really fully commit to that full time. But when COVID shutdowns happened, I had to stop because gyms shut down, and I was able to keep going with mediation. And that's when I realized how much trying to double dip was affecting my ability to focus on one thing. So that was when I was like, you know what? This is it. I'm into this 100%. And that's when it really started to grow. But you and so many others, because it's just, I'm not a cosmetologist, but I've always just cut hair for my own kids and like a little side hustle, family, friends, whatever. And I was working out in your friend's garage, trying to get my little workout in. I shouldn't even be saying that because it was like illegal at the time. But
yeah, I'll never forget. He came into the office and I was like, bro, you got a haircut.
Yeah, I was trading him haircuts for use of his garage gym.
Which is funny to say now, like, you got a haircut, but like back then that was
like a huge
deal. Was a thing.
Like, where are you getting your haircut?
You got a haircut, and I
It's
can
like
tell.
black market stuff.
And I could tell you didn't cut it yourself.
You're definitely not doing the skin fade on the back of your neck.
That is.
Yeah, because he referred you to me for
I was like, let me
haircut
get that
out of my house.
Let me get that number.
Then we started chatting.
It's that chick, the trainer chick. She was working out at the house.
Next thing I know,
she
you
cuts
and
hair.
your wife's like bringing me dinner. We're like hanging out.
Yeah, all of this stuff. That's so wild.
And neither of us were business owners then.
Nope.
We were both just working for other people.
Man,
look at us go.
Look at us now.
It's crazy.
That is weird to think about, because there's such a bad, I don't know, like obviously there was a lot of tough things that happened in quarantine in 2020. It's just weird to think about all the positive things that came from that. And
now that we're out of it, we can be like, oh, I guess there was some positive things. But when you're in it, you're like,
it was just weird, because I was sitting here thinking about what we're talking about and thinking we might not even be sitting here had I been able to just go to a barbershop.
So basically what you're saying is my friendship has been a blessing to you. Is that what you're admitting?
You know, it's like everything cuts both ways. Yes, it has. And now it's fun. Now we talk about what we're doing, and
now I'm in the chair.
Get more people to know what you do, and
we got the like everything that we do, right? Divorce, parenting plans. Mm-hmm. Oh, prenups, postnups. I guess I didn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
We could just recap that. Like just so if you need a divorce, parenting plan, custody, child support rerun, prenup, postnup, hit me up.
I'm not editing any of that, by the way.
Even the nose?
We're keeping all of that stuff. That will be the beauty. That's what people really want to see.
Me picking my nose over.
Yes, that's what they want to see. Man, yeah, I feel like that's a lot. Daniel, I feel like you're gonna have to.
Should I tell people what my Starbucks order is in case they want to like?
You know what?
Bring me anything?
You know what? I'm so glad you just brought that up.
In case anyone wants to drop by my office in downtown Salem.
Here is her ridiculous Starbucks order.
I was on the phone with you discussing my insurance.
Oh,
and I pulled up to Starbucks.
That's right. That's the first time I heard it. That's the first time I heard it.
And you heard me order, and then you were like, "Are you serious?"
It was almost like not sure want to do your insurance or be friends after this. Because I think you just ordered half of whatever is in Starbucks right now. No, yeah. And then I heard it live when we were in Grants Pass.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was like, "Hey, I apologize up front, but go ahead, Brynne. Tell her what you want." So for everyone listening.
Yeah, if you ever want to drop by my office in downtown Salem, just drop off a triple shot over ice in a venti cup with a pump and a half white mocha, a pump and a half toffee nut, light oat milk, light water, topped with salted cold foam, no caramel, please. Thank you.
And you didn't make that up though, right? You heard someone, or
I got it from another local business owner who posted it and tried it and fell in love and then memorized it.
And do you think that person made it up? Like
I think she used to be.
How does something like this come about? That's what I want to know.
I think she used to be a Starbucks barista and would like experiment.
Okay.
And so
I feel like we need to get to the bottom of that story. Like how, cause like me, right? I'm never gonna be like, can I get 10 different things in this? And like half of everything I'm asking
now it's like
for.
A running joke. I was on my way here. I'm like, "Yo, Trout, you want anything from Starbucks?" And he's like,
"There won't be anything left."
There won't be anything left after you order. So go ahead.
No, you go first.
We ran out of everything after her order. It was super basic.
Oh man. I would like you to research that. I would like to know.
I will follow up.
If that person came up with that.
I will go find out and I will report back.
Because I want to know the story.
Okay.
Those are the kind of things that in life I'm like, how does that happen? Because like I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to be that person. So I would love to know the thought process
until you taste it. Like my 15-year-old tasted it and he's like, "I want that."
I'd probably like it, but I'll probably never taste it for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good call.
Maybe that'll be the drink that I have
like
on here every time.
$17 later, you know, right off. Just kidding.
Oh man, I think we covered everything.
Yeah,